Welcome to Civil War Digital Digest. I'm Will. Well, we've traveled to Illinois to the home office of Agents Pelican and Campbell, and Jason Krausz is with us today, and he's going to tell us the story of another weapon from the American Civil War. That's the 1817 common rifle. We see two examples in front of us today, one in the original flint and one that's been converted for percussion, which is more common to our period, the Civil War. Jason, tell us about this weapon.
Sure. Its origins really begin in 1814 model rifle and the 1803 model rifle. And so what's unique about this weapon is it's one of the few guns that's entirely produced, except for the models, by contractors. 4 of the 5 which are in Connecticut, and the last one being Henry Derringer out of Philadelphia.
Okay, well, the Derringer name is somebody that a lot of us know about when we think 19th century weapons, but we think pocket pistols. Tell me about Henry Derringer.
So Henry Derringer's father was a gunsmith, and Henry Jr. goes down to Richmond, learns the trade, comes back at the turn of the century in 1806 and starts his own gun manufacturing business in Philadelphia.
Fantastic. So, well, we've got a weapon with a really interesting name. It's a common rifle. Why that name?
You know, when they were building this weapon, starting really the model was approved in 1818 and the production started in 1819, there was another weapon, another rifle being made at the same time. That would be Hall's rifle, breech loading. And so kind of differentiate the two, they referred to it as the common rifle.
So the common rifle is being made under a very common name, and you say it's contractor made. What role does the Harper's Ferry Arsenal have in this weapon?
Sure. Harper's Ferry produced the models, the base for contractors to base their production off of. And so really Harper's Ferry came up with some design features, and then they sent them out to the different contractors, Simeon North, Derringer, Johnson, and Starr. And so those contractors were to make weapons designed by Harper's Ferry and approved by Harper's Ferry, and they would be in production for approximately 20-some years.
Over 20 years, how many were made?
About 38,200.
Great, and we talk about Derringer specifically. There's a reason for that, right?
Yes, because Derringer's the most widely produced contractor of this weapon.
Great, and we've got a Derringer here in Flintlock still with us today. Tell us, let's walk through the weapon. Tell me a little bit about them.
They're 54 caliber. They're in Flintlock, as you can see. They have nice dovetail sights. There's a brown lacquer finish, which you might be familiar with the 1816 Type 2s having that same finish. Also, the Hall's rifles have that same beautiful brown lacquer finish as well. Iron-mounted hardware, and you also notice that beautiful patch box.
Great, and what's that for?
Appendages, patches, tools for the weapon itself.
Great. Well, we hear the word rifle, and today we sort of think rifle and it's sort of ubiquitous, but we've got the Springfield musket and the 1817 common rifle that are contemporaries with each other. Tell me about the technical difference of firing these weapons.
So really, this being a rifle, you know, it's got 7 lands and groups versus the smoothbore, which has no rifling at all. This weapon is more accurate at a farther distance. The smoothbore, not as accurate at a longer range, but also you can throw more lead down range too.
So what does the Springfield musket have, the 1816, that the 1817 common does not?
So the 1816, being a musket, has a bayonet lug. The 1817 common rifles, they have no bayonet lug when they were originally made. Later on, when they were converted to percussion by either federal arsenals or by Confederate small arm manufacturers, bayonet lugs were eventually added.
Great, and I also noticed a difference to these from the 1816 Springfields we talked about before. I noticed the ramrod tip is different.
Yep, there's a brass tip. Being a lead ball, it's going to be warped if you hit it with iron. So by using a softer metal, the ball keeps that round shape, so it becomes a much more accurate round.
Well, we've had a chance to take a look at the 1817 in Flintlock, and we see Henry Derringer's lovely stamp in the side. Let's step forward to the other version of the 1817 that you've provided for us to see today, and this one obviously looks a lot more like we're used to seeing in general for Civil War. It's been converted to percussion. Tell me a little bit about that.
It has. So in the 1850s and during the Civil War, they were converting these from Flintlock to percussion. There's a wide variety of different ways that they were doing it. However, this one is drum bolster, Some of the Confederate small arms manufacturers, those small machine shops and gun makers in the South, they were using drum bolsters, but they were also using braised bolster alterations as well. Also, the federal government in their arsenals, they were using drum bolsters, and they were also using the cone and barrel conversion that you see on the 1816. One thing that's unique is when they were converting these to percussion, they were adding bayonet lugs. And the Confederates are using saber bayonets for these as well. But they were keeping them in .54 caliber. That's one thing that really never changed. Derringer in '61, he ultimately takes parts for the state of New Jersey and assembles a braised bolster, model 1861 we'll call it, but it's really the same rifle minus a few hardware features, and he supplies maybe 1,000 at most, a few hundred at the minimum, but they were for the state of New Jersey.
So it's a special asterisk to this story, but it's really not a player in the Civil War in any large number.
No, it wasn't. Most of the ones that saw service were Confederate braised bolster alterations or drum bolster alterations.
Well, that leads where I wanted to go next. Just a little over 38,000 of these were made. Where do they see service?
They saw service in the western states, in the Western Theater of War. They saw service in the Army of Northern Virginia, but they also saw service out west. There's about 5,000 of these weapons in California at a federal arsenal, and they'll ultimately see service with the 1st California Volunteer Calvary and some of those western battles way out there.
Wow, fantastic. Well, again, Jason, thank you so much to you and your brother at Agents Pelican and Campbell for bringing some more of these original weapons so we get a chance to really get a connection with what Civil War history might have been like through some of the firearms the men carried. Thank you for spending your time with us at Civil War Digital Digest. We hope you've gained another small connection to the American Civil War and the experience soldiers on both sides had through one of the weapons that they carried. If you've enjoyed the episode, please hit like for us, and thank you to the patrons who are helping more and more of this become possible for you. We'll see you again in a few weeks.